योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचां मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत् योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचां मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत् योगेन चित्तस्य.
Namaste, friends. What a wonderful day and time today. I, Dr. Vikrant Singh Tomar, welcome all of you on behalf of Project Self Incorporation. Dear friends, today we have gathered here for a phenomenal cause and purpose. Across the globe, whether it is India, Australia, Sudan, or America, the goal of every human being is peace and happiness. This is what parents also want for their kids in all the schools across the globe. We want peace and happiness. But Lord Buddha rightly said that there is pain in the world. Dunya mein dukh hai. There is pain in the world. But at the same time, when we see in Gita, when Arjuna says that I am full of misery, I cannot fight. And when Arjun goes about talking about his misery, Lord Krishna starts smiling. Why Krishna is smiling? All of the gods in Indian traditions, all of them are smiling. If there is so much misery in the world, why they are smiling? Probably they know something which we don't. Probably they know some essence of life which we miss. And for that, this divine scripture called Yoga Sutra is being given to mankind to connect, to bind together us with our original self. The union of what? At various levels. Maybe union of body with the breath, and you call it asanas. Union of breath with the mind, you call it pranayama. Union of mind with the intellect, pratyahara. Union of intellect to a point, dharana. Connection of intellect with the self, dhyana. Union of self with supreme, samadhi. All together may be upasana yoga. Or if we take it to our routine work life, union of my actions with my mind, union of mind with intelligence, so that I can be efficient at workplace also. Karma yoga or supreme jnana yoga, union of jivatma with atma, union of jiva with Ishvara, or as they say in Sankhya, union of Prakriti with Purusha. All these things are going to be unfolded in this beautiful journey in the studies of Yoga Sutra. Because when there is union, there is peace and happiness. And where there is not union, it leads to dissonance. Dissonance leads to friction. If there is a dissonance between my speech and action, if there is a dissonance between my action and thoughts, then I will have an internal dissonance, internal friction. That friction leads to anger. This anger, when is expressed outside, it is called aggression. The same anger, when is expressed inside, it is called depression. And together, they are called frustration. And these words, depression, aggression, frustration, anger, They have become the hallmark of our society today. And that's why a deep dive into human psychology, a deep dive into understanding self is must. And in this post-COVID times, if I may permit to say this, or in these COVID times, it is must that such scripture should knock the doors of every home. And through this window of internet, it has been possible. It gives me immense pleasure to invite Shri Rajesh Ravindaji. He is the founder director of Project Self Incorporation, USA, Bharat, and United Consciousness. Of the people whom I ever met, he is one of the best person to speak and elaborate upon Yoga Sutra. I'm very much happy that we all under his guidance will learn and develop ourselves in this journey of Yoga Sutra. I'm sure that we will not only learn, we will execute it into our lives also. With that note, I would like to invite Rajesh Ravindaji for unfolding this grand scripture for mankind. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vikrant, for that wonderful, wonderful introduction. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I know that people have joined from all parts of the world. It gives me so happy, so much, it fills my heart. I'm just borrowing Swami Vivekananda's famous words. It fills my heart with a lot of joy and inspiration and blessing to start this course on Yoga Sutra. Even though we conducted a lot of courses in the past on Bhagavad Gita, on different scriptures, it was our wish to start a course on Yoga Sutra, a step-by-step unfoldment of the most foundational textbook of yoga. One of the biggest challenge with the ancient scriptures are, you can follow two different approach to unfold a scripture. One is a very high level approach, which can be easily understood by everybody, but that will miss a lot of details. On the other side, you can go in deep, but in that process, means people will not follow. So it is our goal to make sure that this course is designed in such a way that it captures all the essences. At the very same time, we are not going to lose any major content. So with that introduction, we can get started. So what we are going to do is the first topic or the first section or phase of this course is introduction. Those who are familiar with data science in our IT industry, they know that when you look at the data, there are two things you can look. One is the actual data. Second thing is what we call it as metadata. That means the data about data. For example, suppose you are looking at the finance information of a person. How much I earn is the data, but the attributes I collect is the metadata. So the first three sessions of this course, we are going to talk about Yoga Sutra and yoga as a whole. The goal or the objective of these introductory sections is to make sure that we are getting a background and context. So please excuse me for that, because it is going to be a little bit of academic, a little bit of scholarly information in the first three sessions. But I promise you, the third session onwards, we jump into the actual Yoga Sutra, and thereafterwards, we are only going to talk about the practical aspects of Yoga Sutra. So with that, we can get started. So the format is, we are going to do this session for an hour. This session, the live sessions will be there in Zoom, but it will be parallel live in YouTube. And at the end, we are going to dedicate 30 minutes for Q&A. So any questions you can ask. Don't worry about whether it is related to yoga or not. Any question related to self-development, spirituality, or yoga, you can ask. No guarantee I can answer all of them, but I will definitely make sure that you will get the answers soon. So with that, we will get started. So please reserve all your questions at the end, 30 minutes. And if you don't have any question, you don't have to stay. But every day at the end, 30 minutes, we will reserve for Q&A. So with that, let's get started. See, I don't have to sell yoga to anybody in the world. Any strip mall you go to United States, you will see a yoga studio. And I don't have to explain the word yoga to anybody. Everybody heard of that yoga. Whether they understood the yoga completely, that's a different matter. But everybody heard about that. So let's just peek into the most surprising statistics and some of the facts about yoga. See, please know, like I was just looking at the recent statistics that came out in 2021. Over 300 million people are practicing yoga all over the world. And interesting, one more observation. In Instagram, at any given point of time, you can see that more than 60 million posts trending with yoga. That's a huge number. Even the organized religions do not have that much. That's amazing. And even within the United States, the number of people practicing yoga is 37 million. I remember me doing the first presentation on yoga on 2011. It was around 18 million. You can see that in the last 10 years, the number has doubled. And when you look at the academic field, almost all the major universities, including Harvard, Princeton, Columbia, you can see that a lot of researches are happening on yoga and meditation. And when you look at the corporates, you can see that almost all the corporates, I'll just show you one more statistics a little bit later, they are using yoga extensively. And when you go to the meditation now, meditation is also, you can see that in the last 10 years, there is a huge growth. And those who are interested, you can review a site called Project Meditation for getting all the statistics on meditation and some of the benefits. Some of the facts I want to highlight here, again, 300 million users, practitioners. And in 2017, an interesting observation, 14.2% of the US adults admitted that they meditated in the past 12 months, one time at least. And we see some amazing clinical results, like what exactly is the benefit of meditative practices. It helps to reduce the anxiety. It reduce some of the chronic diseases. It helps to reduce blood pressures, and it can increase your attention span. So this is proven facts. We are not talking about something which is mystic or which cannot be measured. There are enough evidences and source on all these facts. So now, when you look at the corporate world, right from startup, from the Fortune and to the Fortune 500 companies, yoga and meditation are promoted as part of their wellness program. A very recent statistics from Forbes clearly tells that 52% of the employers in USA promotes one form or the other, the yoga and meditation practice. And most of you might be aware of the famous course designed by Google, Search Inside Yourself. Those who are interested, there is a beautiful book, you can read that. That whole book and the curriculum is based upon the meditative practices. And finally, like Steve Jobs, one of the most remarkable icon in the technology domain. Everybody knows his fascination for spirituality. And only a few people know one fact. He's the one who developed the iPad. And in his iPad, in his Kindle, there was only one book, which was the autobiography of a yogi. And he stated that in the past 20 years of his life, he made sure that he read that book 2 times. Not only that, that book was his final gift of all those who attended his final service. So from that, you can understand how much he valued this particular knowledge. So what I was trying to cover here is yoga is extremely popular, not just in one vertical slice of the industry. It is popular among the common people. It is popular in the academic research. It is popular in the corporate world. Now the larger question is, everybody talks about yoga. So what is this yoga really? Are we just using it correctly? Or are we understanding it is completely? So is it just a dry philosophy, as some people call it out? Or is it just mysticism? Are you promised something and you will see that the results will be given in the heaven? Is that something like that? Or are you going to get some special powers because of the practice of yoga? Or is it just rituals? Or going a little bit further, is it just physical exercise and postures? Or is it just the meditative practices? Or finally, is it includes the spiritual practices? Since a lot of people, practitioners are there, a lot of interpretations are there, a lot of books and articles are there. What is this yoga? Different people have different understanding. And that's what we are going to explore in this session. On a high level, we can say that yoga is not, it is not miracles, it is not commandments, it is not dry philosophy, it is not a post-mortem reward. That's very important, because if I say that, okay, practice this, when you will get the benefit later in the heaven, that's not the yoga. It's not a blind faith. It is not asking you to believe something and the results will be coming. Absolutely not. And then sometimes you see that a lot of people talk about the belief, but most of the times these beliefs will be non-verifiable. There's no way for you to verify. People say that, okay, this is said in this book, that's why you should believe. Yoga is not like that. It's not a set of do's and don'ts you need to follow. Absolutely not. And it is not just limited to physical exercise. Certainly physical exercise is part of yoga. Pranayama, breath control is part of yoga, but it is not just that. Meditation is part of yoga, but it is not just that. Spiritual practices essentially are yoga, but it is not that. So what is this yoga? I like the definition of Dr. Radhakrishnan. He tells it's a way of life with a view. And what is that view or the destination? It is the Vyasa Bhashya of Yoga Sutra tells us that it is Atyandika Dukkha Nivritti. Sorry to use a technical term, but we are going to use some of these technical terms later, so it's better to understand that. Atyandika Dukkha Nivritti means the removal of all the sufferings from our life. And Niratishaya Sukha Prati, the gaining of that unbroken happiness. That is the goal of the yoga. And everything else is part of that journey, because the way of life towards that goal requires all these disciplines. So if that is the case, sorry. Just the slides are frozen. Just give a second. Let me restart the slides. Sorry for the technical glitch. Restart the PowerPoint. Sorry, there is a technical glitch. The slides are not, the PowerPoint is frozen. Okay, so let me fall back. Apologies for the inconvenience. We have to restart the PowerPoint. So just give me 1 second.
No worries. Till you do that, take your time.
Yeah,
We may take a couple of questions.
Yes, please.
Some people may be already having some questions.
Yes, thank you.
Those may be the beginning questions, but we can take it so that we can utilize the time till then.
Yeah.
Anybody with any question is welcome. Even if it is not a question, any discussion point is also welcome, just to utilize the time for good. And as soon as we are ready with the technical solution, we will again begin.
So, hello, Rajesh ji and Vikrant ji. This is Arnab from New Jersey.
Carry on. Yes.
So, I'm sure this is something, Rajesh ji, you will be eventually talking about, but it will be very interesting to learn of a comparison between Bhagavad Gita and Yoga Sutras as we get on with the study of Yoga Sutras.
Perfect. You are absolutely correct, Arnavji. Bhagavad Gita and Yoga Sutra, they go hand in hand together, and lots of references you will find during Yoga Sutra of Bhagavad Gita, and Bhagavad Gita also. When you'll read, you'll find reflections of Yoga Sutra. In fact, to an extent, when you understand Gita well, you understand Yoga Sutra better. When you understand Yoga Sutra better, you understand Gita well. And for example, the concept of reincarnation, the emphasis Bhagavad Gita gives on the concept of reincarnation is the same emphasis Yoga Sutram also gives. The emphasis on Ishvara Pranidhana is given by both of the scriptures. So even terminologies may be different, but the essence will remain the same. What Gita will call as Atma, Yoga Sutra may choose to call it Purusha. So it will be an interesting comparison, and they consolidate upon each other. So hope that answers, Arnavji.
Absolutely, Vikrantji. Definitely answers. Thank you so much for the answer. I was also wondering if, in terms of application of the teachings of both the texts, Bhagavad Gita and Yoga Sutras,
Can we continue the talk without the slides? I mean, the talk was really good.
Yes,
so
we are going to continue. The slides are ready.
This is Val from New York. I'm calling from New York City.
Okay, so slides are ready. We are starting. So no problem.
But I think it's basically, you are very eloquent, so I don't think we need the slides for the time being.
Thank you. So, but we are ready. We can get started. Okay. So, what is this yoga really? So, it is not miracles or commandments or do's and don'ts, and it is not just physical exercises. It is an overall plan to develop yourself. So that is one thing. So now, since when we talk about yoga, it means different thing to different people. And sometimes that is correct. It is means breath control. It is meditative practices. It is spiritual practices. But what is that need of understanding the overall Yoga Sutra? What comes to my mind is when the iPhone started coming out, I gave one of the iPhone to one of my close relatives. See, when you look at an iPhone, you can see that it can be used for making calls. It's a camera. It has AirPod, means you can listen music. It's a GPS. It's a timer. It is an organizer and whatnot. But this relative of mine, he just used the iPhone for making phone call. Is that good? Yes, it's a brilliant phone. But are we using it efficiently? That's exactly what is happening with yoga. Is Hatha Yoga practices are good? Absolutely. It helps me. The pranayama is good. Bhakti Yoga is good. Karma Yoga is good. Everything is good. But understand that it is only a vertical slice of the overall spectrum. It is only a vertical slice of the overall spectrum. That's very important. So it is just like using an iPhone for making a call if I just use yoga for physical benefits. So you can see that there is a three-dimensional aspects here. There is a physical aspect, there is an emotional aspect, and there is a spiritual aspect. For understanding the yoga is extremely important in a holistic sense to pick and choose what I want and making use of that benefit completely. Otherwise, what happens? Just sit and think for a moment. If I just use the iPhone for making the phone call, and if I carry a separate camera and a GPS and organizer, how ridiculous it is. So you have this yoga practice with you, and then you go for some other means for getting the emotional intelligence. And you need some other spiritual practices. No, understanding yoga is going to give you that holistic picture. So this is the need for understanding the yoga completely. And if you want to understand yoga, you need to approach the fundamental scriptures or the authoritative scriptures that define this yoga. And this Yoga Sutra or Yoga Darshana is the most authoritative scripture on means yoga, as somebody just talked in the call earlier. Another book we can consider is Bhagavad Gita. So these are the source from which you can understand the scope of the yoga in its entirety. And the goal of this course is to make sure that we understand yoga through the Yoga Sutra. That's very important, because understanding yoga by just from a small vlog or a blog or a small article, it won't give you the complete picture. But if you study this Yoga Sutra properly, you will get the complete picture of the yoga, so that you can understand the breadth and the depth of this practice. And from there, you will get more benefit. And that's the purpose of this course. And a little bit background about our course. We will have live lectures on every Sunday from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern time frame. And it would be India time, it would be 8:30 to 9:30 right now. And we reserve 30 minutes at the end for any Q&A. In between, we will have group discussions on important topics. And in between, what we do is whenever we cover a particular topic, we will conduct meditation sessions to make sure that that particular information is assimilated. And then we will publish some micro documentary lessons starting this week. Like right from this Tuesday, we will publish whatever we cover in the class, we will publish it as micro documentaries. So you can watch at your leisure and understand the concepts. And then we will have every quarter, we will have some masters coming and discussing certain things with us. We will have a live interaction with masters. And finally, this course is conducted through the United Consciousness. So those who complete all the course and addresses all the assignments, we will give an e-certificate. This is some background about this course. And the schedule and logistics, I already explained. It's Sunday 11 to 12, means 15 minutes we said, but I got a request to have 30 minutes Q&A. So that will be done. All the links are there. So two YouTube channels are there. One is United Consciousness, other one is the Project Self. So please subscribe to that for getting the updates. And also there is a WhatsApp group. You can post any questions there, but please avoid any forward or anything related, any unnecessary subjects. So please stick with yoga there. So with that, let's go to the first topic. So where exactly yoga fits into? Yoga is one of the 6 schools of the ancient Indian spiritual tradition. Nobody can deny that. It is part of the ancient Vedic tradition. So Vedic tradition, ancient Vedic tradition, the Veda are the foundational textbooks of our Indian spiritual tradition. The word Veda means, it came from a root called Vid, means know, and the subject matter of the Veda is threefold. It talks about myself, who am I, what am I, means how can I solve all my problems. That is one portion. The second topic covered in the Veda is the things around me, the world. And the third topic is if there is any reality behind me and the world, what exactly it is. So yoga derives all its information from this Vedas. So there is the lineage of the yoga is from the ancient Vedas. So when you really look at the whole Indian spiritual tradition, it is one of the most ancient and one of the most profound traditions in the world. There is no doubt about it. And I'm not saying that it is the only one tradition that is good in the world. Absolutely not. There are good traditions and values throughout the world. But definitely we can say that it is one of the most profound traditions of the world, the Vedic tradition. So when you really look at the whole Indian spiritual tradition, you can divide that into 2 categories. One is called Astika and the other one is called Nastika. Astika means it derived from a Sanskrit word called Asti. Asti means yes, it is, or the existence. A lot of people think that Astika means it is belief in God. But please correct your understanding. Astika tradition means it is not belief in God. There are schools in Astika traditions which don't even talk about God. Astika only means that it accepts the supremacy of the Vedas. That's all it is. It tells that it derives its authority or it bases its authority from the ancient Vedas. So the Vedic tradition, that can be a loose translation we can give in English. So the schools that regards the Vedas as the infallible source of knowledge, that is the Astika tradition. And popularly, these are known as Hindu schools. And then the second part is, even though the content of the Nastika tradition, Nastika means na asti, no, it's not. So these traditions do not accept the Vedas as the foundational knowledge at all. They, of course, they share a lot of common grounds, but they don't see the teachings of the Veda as the ultimate authority. Rather, they see the teaching of certain masters as the ultimate authorities. For example, Buddhism. Buddhism and the Vedic tradition shares almost 80 to 90% in common. But still, Buddhism is called as Nastika tradition because the ultimate authority there is not the words in the Veda, but the words of Bhagavan Buddha. So that's the difference. So one is the Astika tradition, The other one is called Nastika tradition. And let's see where the yoga belongs to. So let's talk about this Astika tradition. The Astika tradition is known as the Vedic tradition, and there are 6 schools in this Astika tradition. They are called Mimamsa. It is the school of rituals and worship. And then Nyaya, it is the school of logic. And then Vaisheshika, it is the school of science. Then Sankhya, it is the metaphysical model of the universe or the philosophy regarding the universe. And Yoga, practical methods for achieving our potential. And Vedanta, which is the knowledge about our own self. These are the 6 Vedic schools. I want to take a pause here and make sure that we are understanding one point very clearly here. A lot of people call it as philosophies. Please note that that's not the language used in the ancient scriptures. The ancient scriptures uses the word called darshana. Darshana means seeing. So this is not philosophy, because the word philosophy comes from 2 words. One is called phileo, the other one is sophia. It means love for knowledge. Philosophia means love for knowledge. So I study physics for gaining knowledge about physics. I study science, math, for understanding math. But the goal of the darshana is slightly different. I study darshana or I follow darshana not to learn darshana, but to learn about myself, the world, and the God. So darshayati iti darshana. That is the definition. Darshayati iti darshana. That which helps me to see the truth. That which helps me to see the truth clearly. That which helps me to understand the truth properly. That which helps me to understand myself. That is what is darshana. So that's yoga is one of the 6 darshanas. Popularly, this is known as Shat Darshana of our Indian tradition. So that's first point. So let's quickly understand each of these today, and then we will follow. Means first understand where exactly yoga belonging to, understand the other schools on a high level, and then we will specifically focus on one school, which is yoga. So Mimamsa means it is the school of ritual. It is also known as Purva Mimamsa. Again, as I said, all these scriptures take Vedas as their foundational knowledge or the basis. So the Mimamsa portion of the school, it mainly focuses on the first portion of the Veda, which focuses on the rituals. Rituals means what are all the different mantras associated in performing some prayer? What are all the rituals associated with the mantras? How to worship the Supreme? What is the ethical conduct you need to follow? This all defined. This is known as Karma Kanda, Mimamsa school. And the sage who compiled this Mimamsa school is called Jaimini. He was a disciple of Veda Vyasa, and he compiled this system of school into a book called Mimamsa Sutra. So Mimamsa Sutra is the most authoritative book on the school of Mimamsa, but the key focus of this Mimamsa is the Karma Kanda of the Veda. That's what it is. This is the first school. The second school is called Nyaya. Nyaya means this is a beautiful school systematized by a sage called Gautama. Gautama means those who read Ramayana knows who is Gautama. He's a famous sage. The whole idea is create a model to understand, to explain certain concepts. So in the Western scientific world, right, we use the Greek logic. The Greek logic is used in the Western scientific world for explaining various concepts. So in the case of that, all the other schools uses the rules of logic defined by Nyaya. It's very logical, And it is even used by the other non-Vedic schools, such as Buddhism, Jainism, etc. So for example, the rules of logic, they talk about that. What are all the means of knowledge? One is a direct perception. So means you are seeing me, so you can see that, okay, I exist. But that is not the entire means of knowledge. For example, if I see a smoke, I can always infer that there is a fire. There are Arundhati Nakshatra Nyaya, right? So instead of, suppose something is not obviously visible, what you do is you try to locate something which is closer to you, closer to that object, which can be easily seen. And then with respect to that object, you try to point that out. So this is all this logic system is brilliantly developed in the school of Nyaya. And Maharshi Gautama developed that. Understand this. It is not joke. You will be amazed by the logic used in this school. So Nyaya Sutra is the book, and it is compiled by Maharshi Gautama. So this is the second school. And the third school is known as Vaisheshika. Vaisheshika is the school of science. And this school, it is mainly focused on the objects of the universe. That is what Vaisheshika focuses on. And this is done by Maharshi Kanada. Kanada is a famous sage in ancient India. And you will be amazed to see the level of details they have analyzed this universe. For example, they introduce the concept called Anu Paramanu. Anu means molecule, and then Paramanu means atoms. So they, in this Vaisheshika Sutra of Kanada, it is clearly said that the smallest indivisible unit of matter is atom, Paramanu. They talk about the positive charges and negative charges. It's amazing how deep they could get into the scientific aspects of the universe. Remember, we are talking about 500 BC, 500 years before Christ. That means 2,500 years back. So that time you get and understand all these things with the then available tools and technology is amazing. I'm not saying that it covers the entire scientific knowledge of the world. It is a false claim, but definitely considering the fact that what is available at that point of time, what is the exposure at that point of time, the advancement made by Sage Kanada was amazing. This is the Vaisheshika school. Now let's go to the Sankhya school. Sankhya is the fourth school. It is the school of metaphysics. Basically, Sankhya means it derived from the word Sankhya, means count. Two ways to interpret the word Sankhya. One is, it is very logical. So if you say 1, 2, 3, the next is 4. So there is a logic. I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, therefore it is 4. Second thing is, you can see that there is a proper classification of almost everything in the universe. So the Sankhyan metaphysics inquires what is the reality behind the universe. They say that there are two realities behind the universe. One is matter, the other one is consciousness. Purusha and Prakriti. The combination of this Purusha and Prakriti forms the entire universe. So it provides a good metaphysical model to understand the universe. And the basic scripture of the Sankhyan school is the Sankhya Sutra, but unfortunately, that Sankhya Sutra is never available for us. It's lost. Of course, you can see some of the reference of Sankhya Sutra, for example, in the Yoga Sutra commentary of Vyasa. He quotes a few sutra, but in its entirety, it is lost. And what we have right now is a book called Sankhya Karika, compiled by Ishwara Krishna. But it is an elaboration, and there is a lot of commentaries and sub-commentaries. And we are going to talk more about this Sankhya later in this session. The reason is the yoga school relies a lot on Sankhya for its metaphysical model. For example, the model they use to understand the universe, the model they understand myself is Sankhya. So yoga gives the path to realize it, but the metaphysics is used by Sankhya. So in other words, we can say that the Sankhya provides the theory and the yoga gives the practical aspect of it. So it's very important for us to understand this Sankhya, and we will talk more about this Sankhya in our Yoga Sutra session later. But understand that Sankhya is one of the major schools. One more point to highlight here is, in Sankhya, they don't even talk about God. They talk about the consciousness or the reality called Purusha, and they talk about matter. There is no God in between. That's one difference you see between Sankhya and yoga. But in yoga, the idea of God is very important. So we will see all those details, but understand that there is no God. The concept of God is not there in Sankhya. So I just wanted to go back and restate the point I was making earlier. When you talk about the Astika tradition, a lot of people think that the belief of God is must for this Astika tradition, but absolutely not. For example, Sankhya doesn't believe in God, but still it is part of the Astika tradition. Now, Vedanta. So the next school is called Vedanta. So Vedanta literally means the end of the Veda, or it can be also called as Purva Mimamsa. Purva Mimamsa is also known as Vedanta. It is the end portion of the Veda, or we can even say that it is the final destination one is going to get by learning the Vedas. So Vedanta clearly focus on three things. Again, who are you? What is your real nature? And what is the role of God? And what is that God you're talking about? Is that somebody sitting above the cloud and just distributing blessings as and when required? Or what is the idea of God? And what is the absolute reality that sustains this entire universe? And what is the relationship between the individual, which is Jiva, the universe, which is Jagat, and God? So this is the major inquiry in the school of Vedanta. And the foundational textbook in Vedanta is called Brahma-Sutra, and it is compiled by the sage Badarayana. A lot of people believe that it is Vedavyasa, but there is difference of opinion is also there. Sage Badarayana is different from Vedavyasa. When you think about Vedanta, even though Brahma-Sutra is a systematic compilation of the Vedanta, there are two other canonical textbooks also considered as part of Vedanta. One is the Upanishads, second one is Bhagavad Gita, and of course the third one is Brahma-Sutra. So Brahma-Sutra is a compilation of what is given in the Upanishad and Bhagavad Gita. And to make matter a little bit complicated, when you take the Bhagavad Gita, you can see that even though it is majority, it is based on the Vedanta, but a lot of ideas from yoga and Sankhya is also used there. So this is the school Vedanta. And we are starting a class on Upanishad, maybe October 1st, that is Isha Upanishad, that is entirely based on this Vedanta school. Then finally comes to the yoga. Yoga means it is the practical school. It is the school of practice. Because just think about this. You think that, as means, who am I? In the current world, I think that I'm a limited individual. I do have this problem. The way my mind works is this. And we know that the scripture always gives a different view. It tells that, oh, all these problems can be addressed here and now by knowing your own truth. So how? There is a delta between my current perception about myself and what is listed as my true nature. So when I see a delta between my current state and a proposed state or my real state, how do I close that delta? How do I clear that gap? How do I make sure that means I realize my true potential? For that, we need a way of life with a pure, means a clear view. And that's what is given by yoga. So it gives you all the practical tools and techniques by which I can lift myself to that state, which is the most desired state for an individual. And this school, this yoga school, it was there from time immemorial, but it was properly compiled and systematized by Seth Patanjali through his classical work called Yoga Sutra. And again, the word yoga derives, means we are going to explore this in detail when we do the Yoga Sutra. It comes from a root word in Sanskrit called yuj. This root word in Sanskrit, yuj, has two meanings. One is yuj yojani or yuj melani. The popular meaning most of you might have heard. It is called union. What is that union you are talking? See, it is the union of my current limited I with the Supreme Self. This is the self-realization we are talking. That is one meaning of the word yuj. So if that is the definition of yuj, only a few saints are considered as yogis. So that's not the entire definition of yoga. So that's where the second meaning of the word yuj comes in. It's a yujir iti nirodha or samadhi. So that means it is a state of mind which is pure, calm, and controlled. See, when you take a device, there are some optimal operating conditions. For example, if you keep an ice cube in a very, very hot environment, it will melt. So there are certain operating conditions for every equipment or tools to work. Our body and mind is already defined. It has certain operating conditions. And what is, for example, if you are too much emotional, you won't be able to solve the problem. So what is that optimal state of mind I need to have for me to execute my actions, for me to pursue my job, so for me to experience a level of happiness within me? So the first goal of yoga is to make sure that we are gaining that optimal state of mind. So that is the second definition of yoga. So the entire practice of yoga will be into twofold. One is that practices which helps me to gain this optimal state of mind. That's one. Second thing is the practices that helps me to unite it with my higher self. So all that will come here. So that means the karma yoga, the bhakti yoga, the jnana yoga, the hatha yoga, the kundalini yoga, everything will come into proper place. So these practices are going to help you to reach that state. So that is the sixth school, which is yoga. So summing up, the Indian spiritual traditions can be divided into two. And one of the major categories of the Indian spiritual tradition is known as Astika. Astika means it doesn't mean that the belief of God or not. The God is not coming here at all. It just means that your authority of the Vedas. And there are 6 schools that confirms to the authority of the Vedas. They are Mimamsa, which is the school of rituals. Then Nyaya, which is the school of logic. Vaisheshika, which is the school of science. And then you have Sankhya, which is the school of metaphysics. Then Yoga, which is the school of practice. And Vedanta, which is the school of knowledge, self-knowledge. So this is the first part. I hope now you understand where exactly yoga fits. So now let's, for the sake of completeness, let's try quickly see what are all the 3 non-Vedic schools, which are Astika Darshana, Nastika Darshana. Nastika Darshana means na asti. No, it's not. No, it's not means what? Whether the God is not or not. That's not the question. The question is, whether you accept Veda as the ultimate authority. So these three schools, Buddhism is originated in India. It is one of the most profound traditions of the world. 80 to 90% of the teachings of the Buddhism is pretty much similar to the Vedic schools. The only difference is that Gautama Buddha didn't accept the supreme authority of the Vedas. Or even the Buddhist, they don't accept Veda as the ultimate truth, even though they say that, yeah, Vedas has facts, but they don't accept the authority of the Veda. Instead, they keep the words of Buddha as the authority. So that is why. And Buddhism is subdivided into two. There is Hinayana and Mahayana, which has different focus, but that's not our subject matter. And the major textbook, actually there is each traditions of Buddhism has their own scriptures, but the major textbook is Dhammapada. Dhammapada in Pali means it is Dharmapada in Sanskrit. So Dhammapada is the most authoritative scripture. And Bhagavan Buddha is their supreme authority. And the second school in this Nastika tradition is known as Jainism. And the Jainism, the key focus is ahimsa. You can see that even Jain monks symbolically covering their mouth. They don't want to hurt anybody. It's a beautiful tradition. Again, they don't accept Vedas as their final authority. Rather, they go with their teachings of their gurus. The prominent guru is, or the prophet is Varthamana Mahavira. He synthesized the philosophies or the teachings during this around 550 BC. And there are another 24 Tirthankaras. One of the major books is called Agama Sutras, that is Jainism. Again, Jainism shares a lot of common aspect with the Vedic tradition. For example, the karma, all these things are pretty much similar. But since they do not accept Veda as their ultimate source or a final authority, it is called as Nastika Darshana. And finally, there is another school in India called Charvaka, the Charvaka Darshana. Charvaka Darshana, Charvaka means walk, means speech. Charvaka means sweet speech. It is the pure agnostic or materialistic viewpoint. They say that don't worry about rebirth or the punyas or papa. So even if you take long, just enjoy your life. When the body dies, it will become ashes. There is no coming back. So just enjoy the life. It is pure materialistic view. And the difference is, right, in any other part of the world, this fellow would have been killed and he would have been thrown out. So, but in India, Indian tradition, he was accepted. His point of views were accepted. And he was given a status as of a philosopher, and Charvaka Darshanas came after that. And how much the people were interested in protecting these type of retaining their own thoughts. For example, I just wanted to quote out one example from Valmiki Ramayana. So at the end of the Valmiki Ramayana, when Rama was ruling the kingdom, Rama Rajya, one of the report Rama asked to Lakshmana was, how safe the Charvakas are in this country. He said, like, they should have the freedom to inquire and practice what they believe to be true. Nobody should be imposing any thought on them. This is how it was protected and preserved. Whether we agree with that or not, that doesn't matter. But Charvaka has their own idea. So these are the three schools of non-Vedic schools. So that comes to an end of this session, the summary. So in the summary, means what we tried to cover was the Indian spiritual philosophical traditions is highly classified into two, Vedic and non-Vedic. One is Mimamsa, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Yoga, and Vedanta are the Vedic schools. And Buddhism, Jainism, Charvakaism, it comes to the other side of the spectrum. So yoga, which is going to be our focus, is it belongs to the actual Vedic school, and yoga is part of that Vedic tradition. So now there is a question. Means a lot of time you hear a lot of controversies and misinformation, even by the yoga teachers. Very recently, I heard somebody saying that, yeah, I believe in yoga, but I don't believe in the Vedas. It's like somebody saying that, okay, I believe in PowerPoint, but I don't believe in the underlying operating system. That's it. So when people make statements, they just need to understand what is that drives this particular school. So please understand that yoga is part of the Vedic tradition. But the beauty of the Vedic tradition is it accepts that plurality. You means Vedic tradition never tells you should call your God in this particular form. If you call the God in a particular form, you will not, there is absolutely no problem. All the different worships are accepted here. We are not going to claim that one philosophy or one tradition is superior than other, but that doesn't mean that it is not part of the Vedic tradition. So this is the summary of the first lesson. So that comes to an end of our first topic. So please look at this schedule. So every week, every Sunday, we will do from 11 to 12 lecture, and we will open it up for Q&A or any discussions. You don't need to register or anything like that here afterwards. And any questions you can post on the WhatsApp group. Means you will have this recording available immediately to you. It's there in the YouTube channel listed. And also we will be publishing the micro documentary lessons starting from tomorrow. By the end of this week, you will have everything available. So that way you will get a chance to study. And I really hope and enjoy if you put some effort, this you will be able to understand this together. We can study this scripture properly. So with that, let me open it up for any Q&A. So we can start any questions and answers, 30 minutes. Those who do not have any questions, feel free to drop. I just wanted to make a couple of announcements. You go. Please be mindful in using the WhatsApp group, because the WhatsApp groups loses its significance when you don't use it properly. So what I would suggest is just make sure that we do the follow-ups or only related to this topic is posted in the WhatsApp group. So that's one thing. Second thing is, I request everybody to make sure that we follow this teaching very regularly. So if you put some time every week, that would be very, very helpful. So that's the second thing. Third point is, if you have any questions, please post this in this group. We will be glad to address that.
This is Valpraro from New York. You mentioned that Vedanta is called Purva Mimamsa?
No, Uttara Mimamsa. Vedanta is called Uttara Mimamsa. Uttara Mimamsa means it is the end portion of the Veda.
I see. But Mimamsa had to do with the grammar and